What was your oh crap, my friends and butthole moment? Told her a personal story, asked and trusted her to keep it to herself. A few weeks later, so a friend told me this fricked up thing, and tells me that exact story. First instance in a short chain of events that ended that friendship. A friend offered to come over and help pass out flyers in my neighborhood for my missing dog. She arrived with a few friends and a case of beer. We split up, me alone to cover a few streets, and her with her friends to cover some other streets. A short time later we crossed paths and they had no more flyers. They said they'd passed them all out and said they were leaving. I walked down one of their streets and didn't see any flyers on cars or doors. At the end of the street I found the entire stack of flyers I had given them. They were at the bottom of a storm drain gutter. Holy crap, frick those people. I hope you found your dog. When she got into her first relationship and kept getting angry at every little thing her boyfriend did, when he would defend himself, she would get even more mad. Nothing was ever her fault, it was everyone else's. Even when she found out all his friends hated her, she still acted like they were the problem. I never knew she could be so mean and crazy. She's matured now, but man, it was impossible to be on her side back then. Around age 9 or 10, my mom took me and 2 friends out for lunch and ice cream for my birthday. We were supposed to wait for her after while she made a quick trip to the restroom. They went back to the table and I guess thought I wouldn't notice, but they stole the waitress tip. I figured it out largely by seeing the waitress face after they came back. I told my mom and we never took them out again. This is one of those things that kids think they get away with. Those 2 are probably under the impression that neither you nor the waiter noticed and it ingrained the idea that small thefts like that are a-okay. This is how people begin to become buttholes. When I was 20 or so I was walking the mall with this girl from work who I was starting to become friends with. She was sipping a smoothie while walking near the edge of the 2nd floor and when she finished it she just casually tossed the cup over the ledge like it was no big deal. Didn't even look back. Just oh, I'm done with this. Might as well toss it over here. Who cares where it lands? I can't help but think of Begbie in Trainspotting. He ordered shots for the 2 of us and 6 other girls at the bar we didn't know while I was in the bathroom. When I came back the bartender poured all the shots. We took them and then told my friend it'd be $80. My friend points to me and says, "He's paying." Yeah, that was about the point. Holy Jesus, those are some expensive shots. I found out he'd been obsessively stalking my Reddit account and telling my other friends everything I would write about so they could make fun of me. I had to delete my old account and make this one. I don't post nearly as much. A friend of mine came back from basic, started harassing high school girls. His girlfriend found out he was screwing a HS freshman. He blamed me for telling her, but I didn't know about it until he blamed me. He became a cop and is currently in jail for rape. Well, that's just scary. We met a Brazilian girl up here in America. He spent 3 weeks seducing her away from the flock of guys trying to get her attention and eventually managed it by flying the 2 of them to Brazil. 3 months later, I got a call from her. Guy had paid for her to go backpacking through South America with him and gotten tired of her crap in Colombia and just ditched her with no money, no ride, no anything. She literally had a backpack full of camping supplies and nothing else. I called him up and asked him what happened and his response was, "She cock-blocked me last night." I took a long hard look at how much money I've spent on her and decided she wasn't worth it. Then he hung up on me. That's when I knew he was in butthole. But the story continues. A few months later, I hear from him again. He was still doing the backpacking thing and had made his way back to Brazil. First thing he did was look up the girl he had stranded in Colombia and try to move in with her. He couldn't though, cause she had a boyfriend living with her by then. He spent 3 nights in a hostel before convincing her that the whole "I stranded you internationally because I was angry that you weren't letting me treat you like crap" thing was just a giant misunderstanding. She met him at a club. They had sex again, without the current boyfriend's knowledge, and started a week-long affair. Brazilian girl borrowed money from her parents to rent an apartment with my friend and borrowed a car to move him out of the hostel so they could start a life together. My friend decided she wasn't worth the commitment if she could just cheat on her boyfriend and move out so quickly with a guy who had stranded her internationally. He moved out before she could pick him up and called the boyfriend to warn him about her before skipping town. That guy is the biggest dong I've ever met. 2 days later, he convinced a Dutch exchange student to drop out of her degree program and use her daddy's money to fly them both to Amsterdam. He ditched her less than a week later because she was too controlling. What was she actually doing? Asking him not to bang other chicks in her bed while she was out job hunting. That crosses from dong territory into psychopath territory. When he ran over a cat with his car, saw him, stared at him, thumped cat is gone. I grabbed his shoulder and tried to stop him but too late. And not long after that he was charged with molestation of a minor. 7-year-old girl. And he claims she seduced him and that her parents were already doing it with her and so it was her fault. Yes, seriously. He was about 22 at the time. We weren't friends after that. That was 30 years ago. These days he has found the Lord and asks people if they have also found the Lord and tries to reconnect with me on Facebook. No thanks and frick you. Not really that big and butthole, but enough of one where I didn't want to be friends with him anymore. He'd grab stuff out of my lunchbox or off of my lunch tray if I wasn't paying attention. One day he happened to be behind me as we were driving to school, and he thought it would be funny to tailgate really close the entire drive. He also thought that it was hilarious to go around sack tapping everyone. Every single day. Sometimes it's just dumb crap that adds up. Sounds like an immature freaking tool. My friends and I were about 15 and had someone 18 buy us smokes. The guy, Christo, was kind of a goth kid. Cool guy. After he bought us our smokes and left, my friends started talking crap about him. I wish I would have caught up to him and given him the smokes back and told him never to do favors for any of my friends again. This one hurts so much. I feel for the goth kid even though he'll most probably never know. It's such a crappy thing to do. They're douchebags. If I want it, and the school doesn't do it, my dad will go in and make sure I get it. If somebody messes up, we can sue them. I get what I want, what I deserve. You don't frick with my family. Rich friend. And she said it like it was nothing. She wasn't even mad when she said it. She spoke it as though it were a fact, and something that everyone does. Needless to say, we're no longer friends, especially since I stopped talking to her. So she tried to get me arrested and expelled for harassment. When she knowingly slept with a married man who also had children, blamed his wife for him cheating, and got angry when she tried to get him to buy her a trip to Vegas and he declined. Her exact words, "I'm hot and he's married, I should at least be getting something out of this." That was the end for me. My sister does this crap, not the Vegas part, but the accepting no blame for sleeping with a married man with kids part. She's an butthole. She passive aggressively chewed out our server for her steak being too rare, which wasn't even the server's fault, and then refused to leave him a tip. I ended up tipping him $20 on my check, unbeknownst to her. A person who is nice to you, but not nice to the waiter, is not a nice person. When I hadn't seen her in 2 years she suddenly showed up to my house. It was all good. She was wearing a in loving memory of shirt, not a big deal. Everyone around here wears those. She takes me to her aunt's house and I notice a lot of cars. Okay, everyone is wearing a in loving memory of shirt. She brought me to her funeral. I looked at her with wide eyes wearing my Rick and Morty shirt while sad family members watched. She didn't care in the least that it was a funeral for a 13-year-old that died of cancer. In bird culture, that is considered a dong move. Late to the party, but it will feel good to get this out there. Guy I knew all through HS and got together with him and all the old gang when we were home from college. We stood up for each other weddings and included all the wives. Pretty much setting up for let's get together a few times a year type of life. Called him up to go golfing as one of the guys was in town from 120 miles away. He tells me I've got a new life now. I hang out with the people from my neighborhood. So freaking proud he knew a NFL player. Quit calling me. Okay, fair enough, but kind of an butthole. I kind of figured his wife put him up to it. Time goes by, haven't seen some of the gang for 5 years, when one of my buds drops dead of a heart attack. His wife has other problems. I start calling everyone to break the news. I ask his brother to pass the word. At the wake, everyone is there. Place is packed. Some drove 30-40 miles, with one exception. Butthole knew him since they were 8 years old and couldn't be bothered to drive 5 miles. What an butthole. 7th grade English. We had a substitute teacher that day, one that no one really liked, but we put up with her. She was an older lady, wasn't mean or anything, just not our regular teacher that we loved. We walk into class that morning, my friend sees the substitute and rolls his eyes and lets out an audible sigh. Then he sits down at his desk and proceeds to put his head on his desk, arms covering his eyes, and ignores everything this teacher says. We even had to answer for him when she did roll call. Anyway, the teacher begins to teach a lesson about using the 5 senses when writing. She goes on for a while and then starts to explain that sometimes your senses can influence how you remember things. Certain smells or sounds can bring up distant memories instantaneously. She tells a story about how when she was a child, they lived near train tracks. Twice a day she would hear this train whistle. It was while living in that house that her father passed away, and they moved shortly thereafter. But even to this day, when she hears a train whistle, it brings back memories of her father. My friend, for the first time since he walked into the room, lifted his head up, looked her in the eyes, and blurted out a prepubescent choo-choo. The teacher just stopped, looked like she was about to cry amongst stifled laughter, and walks out of the room. I never saw this teacher again. When he yelled and swore at a mutual friend for not coming to our school concert to watch us play, because she had to take her mom to the hospital in an emergency. I can't believe you're friends with gay people. Really, we should just round them all up and shoot them. I looked at him for a long time to see if he was serious. The exact moment I realized I could never truly love my ex was when he told me he supported gay marriage to my face, and then when my parents started talking about being against it, he agreed wholeheartedly and even turned against me when I argued with them. I was so mad I stormed out of my own house. He wound up being super gay, so that probably explains it. My buddy was in a car accident. Nothing serious, but he texted his girlfriend of a few months, "I got in a car accident." And when she naturally started asking him what happened, if everyone was okay, etc., he didn't text her back for a couple days. Thought that was extremely douchey to just have his GF freak out and worry and then not talk to her. God, I hope she dumped him after that. If my boyfriend did that to me, I'd be so worried and angry that I'd have a hard time trusting him again. On the day before our exam, I wanted him to return one of my books. He came to my house to study but left the book behind because it was too heavy. It had 60 pages. Had to read that 3-4 times to get it. You wanted him to return the book to the library, not return to you a book you lent him. My friend has always been kind of in Butthole, but it hit its peak when, in 1 month, he bought a new kitten, got tired of it, released it into the woods, then was busted lying to his brother roommate about rent, effectively stealing his brother's money. Poor kitten. When he argued a bill at our local equivalent of a Waffle House, it went on for about 15 minutes and they threatened to call the cops. The difference was about $1. The time my one friend owed my other friend money, and then one night called him and threatened him that he was not going to pay him cause he helped him move. Even though they made a pact before they moved that they would help each other move into each other's new places. He felt people owed him a lot things. When she told me her last best friend's deepest darkest secrets, but I'm dense, so I was still friends with her. About a year of lies. I was out. She didn't just lose weight, she had gastric bypass surgery. She wasn't abused by her ex-husband, she gaslighted him. She didn't need drugs for her skin removal surgery gone wrong. She was a pill addict. She isn't engaged to her boyfriend. She just freeloads. I spent the night wrongly accused of a crime, and when I got out, the next day, she walked right past me at pickup time at the elementary school. Never called me, asked me WTH happened, nothing, so much more. She is by far the shittiest person I have ever met. One day I was walking to my other friend's apartment with my friend. He decided to start barking at every attractive girl we walked by. I never go anywhere with him now. When he told a mutual friend, whose mom was sick with cancer, that she was being selfish for wanting to stay home and help take care of her mom and sister instead of coming out with us. Look, I'm sorry that your grandfather died, but I have a real problem. Here, if I can't live on campus next semester, I'm going to have to commute. Gasp, Lord forbid. When I told her how to respond to a situation in which she was causing problems and she responded, "No, that makes it sound like I'm the one who's wrong." Went to a music festival with a buddy. The entire 4 days he spends chasing drunk stoned woman around trying to get laid. Ignores his buddies. Trashes his tent showing off to some girls likely half his age. At one point has a group of women screaming at him because he has been following around a girl all day and she can't seem to convince him she's not interested. Finally I sit him down forcefully and have a man to boy talk. I may have slapped him a few times for calling the girl whose day he ruined a bee. He grabs his pack sack from his ruined tent and shuffles off crying. I've never spent a minute in his presence again. Can't stand that butthole anymore. But she's drunk anyway, and I'm the cleanest guy around, no sweat or mud. I just had a shower. She basically has to sleep with me. I passed her a water glass from the front of the drinks queue. When my male friend kept telling me about all these married men he was sleeping with. He is HIV positive and I asked him if they were using protection and if he had told them that he was HIV positive. He said that yes, they all knew and didn't care about using protection. I call bulls. I knew he wasn't telling them. Not only is he a butthole, but it's morally wrong and illegal. I also secretly mailed him a printout about how HIV is spread. This is seriously messed up and also illegal. I'm fairly certain he could be charged for that. She came into a lot of money. I was the only person who never asked her for a dime or favor. We were friends since 3rd grade. I didn't care she was suddenly rich. She started buying friends and then holding it over their heads to be ridiculously demanding. She tells me to get her a drink from Starbucks on my way over, then beam me out because it's wrong. That's the last time I talked to that cow. A third friend was deathly ill and had no time to do anything other than fight off infection and medicate. My ex-friend was upset that the third friend didn't hang out anymore. This reminds me of when I had a kidney infection and thought I was on my deathbed, and the guy I was hooking up with at the time knew I was sick and still wanted to frick because it won't hurt that bad and you owe me anyways. WTF. He was sympathetic when I had issues, but when I felt better he'd use them against me to make me feel like crap. I was nothing more than a punching bag for his ego. He's truly an awful guy, though he insists he's a good person and all his insults are merely jokes. I just realized I'm a giant butthole. When he borrowed my car to go and screw my ex in, I wasn't over her yet and he told me that he was doing it for my own good so I could get over her. My dad hired my best friend as a caregiver for my dying mother. He also had Hospice coming to the house to take care of the medical stuff she needed. I found out that she told the hospice nurses that my dad was bad mouthing them and saying they were bossy to him and were killing my mom with pain meds. She was on morphine because she was freaking close to death. Dad never said these things. He loved the nurses and is still friends with them today. He almost lost hospice care because they had to report any complaints to their supervisor. He ended up having to call and straighten everything out with administration. That was the last thing he needed at that time. Her motive? She wanted more hours. What an awful thing to frick around with. Get another job if you're that desperate. Took an online test for a friend of mine in exchange for a $40 Buffalo Wild Wings gift card. Got an A for him. Went to use the gift card on a date and it had 54 cents on it. Confronted him about it and he didn't care at all. Haven't really trusted him since. I didn't really care about the money, just the principle of him trading my trust for $40. For $39.46 he lost what could have been a lifelong friend. Stupid. When I realized how unsympathetic he was toward people with any kind of psychological issues whatsoever, be it depression, addiction, anxiety, abusive relationships. I even heard him make fun of people with military-induced PTSD and service animals. Direct quote, "If you need a dog to keep you from blowing your brains out, go ahead and do it." Another time he made fun of my own sister for having addiction problems and being in an abusive relationship. Mind you, at the time I was really stressed and opening up to him about it. He told me she was stupid for putting herself in that situation. That's just not how abuse works. It's a slow burn and has nothing to do with intelligence on the victim's part. He also went as Dead Robin Williams for Halloween right after he committed suicide. He was literally the most heartless and mean-spirited little prick I've ever known. Didn't know him personally, but this is a story of a friend of a friend. Basically this guy, let's call him Sam. So Sam is 17, he has his own little banger of a car and he's a learner driver and, of course, shouldn't be driving without a full licensed driver in the car with him, but who cares, we all do it sometime. Anyway, basically Sam lives in the middle of nowhere, you can't really get around without a car, so he'd always be cruising about with his friends in the car, you know, to the shops, cinema, train station, who knows. Anyway, you wouldn't really get police around the area he lives. It's a small town, nothing really goes on there. So sometimes Sam would let some of his pals drive the car if they felt confident enough. So one night he lets his friend, let's call him Jordan, drive the car around for a while. Everything's going fine for the first couple of minutes and then, yes you guessed it, Jordan crashes the car. Now this isn't just a little slide into a ditch or a harmless crash into a fence or tree. This car flips over and is completely smashed. The people in the car, Sam, Jordan and 2 other friends, have to go to A+E afterwards. They were all fine, but it was still pretty traumatic. So Jordan crashes the car, and it's like 2 in the morning, the car is on its side and they've no way of getting home. They can't call the police or an ambulance or Sam's parents because if they find out Jordan was driving they would all be in deep crap, right? So Jordan convinces Sam to not say anything at the moment, and call the insurance company in the morning and let them know he, Sam, crashed the car, so that then Sam could make a claim and get everything fixed up no problem. So they call another few mates to come down and help flip the car back over and basically push it home back to Sam's. In the morning Sam calls the insurance company and tells them the whole fake story of how he was driving with some friends in the car and crashed. So the insurance company take down the records and say they'll send a letter out to him in a few weeks. Keep in mind, when you give a report to an insurance company you can't ring back and change the story. It's on file and on record, end of. Fast forward a week or 2 later and Sam gets a letter in the post. He opens it thinking it's from the insurance company. Nope. It's a letter calling him to court. A letter for Sam informing him that Jordan was suing him for personal injury, for the injuries and trauma he had from the crash. And since it's on record Sam was driving, he can't call back and change the statement because then he would be done for insurance fraud, so he literally has no choice but to pay for this dickhead's medical bills and God knows what else. Seriously a dickhead move. Couldn't believe it when I heard it. I'm just glad it didn't happen to me. Sam and Jordan are equally guilty of insurance fraud here. One goes down, the other goes with him. We live in a dorm together. Then he complained that I wake up too early. I wake up at 7 AM. I have class at 9 AM. And that my mouse clicks are too loud. And that he doesn't get enough sleep. It took him 4 weeks of being angry with me, refusing to tell me that I'm loud, and complains to my girlfriend instead. Once my girlfriend refused to control her boyfriend several times, he finally demanded that I sleep an hour later so not to disturb him. I offered to be quieter as I finish homework in the morning. I suggested that he goes to sleep earlier and not watch anime until 1 AM. He refused to change his sleep schedule and demands that I change mine. Then he called me selfish for refusing his demands. What a self-centered prick. I wish my former roommate was as considerate as you. My former roommates didn't care that they were keeping me up even when I told them numerous times that they were. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.